Hey, welcome back. This is the Ben Shapiro Show. We're joined on set by Nikki Haley, my spirit animal, former ambassador to the United Nations. Her brand new book is With All Due Respect. Nikki, thanks so much for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
It's always fun to be here, and your set is awesome.
It's so much better than it was even last time you were here when we were in a basement. So let me start by asking you about the impeachment debacle that is going on currently. Obviously, the Democrats brought forward yesterday a couple of impeachment charges, neither of which actually constitute crimes. So what do you make of the Democrats' impeachment effort?
You know, I actually think that their goal in this is not that they think they can defeat the president. I think it's the fact that they're going after those vulnerable Senate seats. I think this is just putting those senators in a spot that they want to see if they can win those seats, because they literally know the Senate's not going to impeach him. This is meant to be nothing but a distraction. And they're using it to waste time, and they're using it to win congressional seats as opposed to the president's.
It's funny because I don't see the polls moving in their direction. It seems like they're pretty stagnant. Not a lot of minds are being changed on all of this, which is why they're moving so fast. It seems to me that they thought they were going to get more support for this, more of a groundswell, and then it seems to have petered out just because they don't have the goods.
You know how you know? 2 press conferences today. One is for impeachment. Nancy Pelosi standing there with just a handful of Democrats. The other one, USMCA, and it's packed. I mean, if that doesn't tell you more of a stark difference of where even the Democrats are, I mean, there's just not a lot of passion for it.
Okay, so I want to switch topics and talk about the controversy of the week that engulfed you on Twitter, because Twitter is the stupidest place on earth, a place to dunk and be dunked upon. And Twitter decided to go after you. Mainly it was Media Matters, our good friends over at Media Matters, who make a living out of taking donations from people so that they can spend their lives in basements, cutting people out of context. So they took a clip of you from Glenn Beck's show in which you were talking about the way that people in South Carolina view the Confederate flag. And they suggested that you have no historical knowledge of the Confederate flag, that you don't understand that the Confederate flag has a history steeped in racism. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about that, because you made a statement. First, you took the flag off the state grounds at the Capitol in South Carolina. It was very controversial at the time in 2015. And you made a statement at the time in which you explicitly talked about the dual visions of the flag that are held by many African Americans correctly, and by a lot of white Southerners also not incorrectly.
Well, you know, I mean, this is the thing. Look, I have always spoken hard truths. So if you don't want to hear it, don't listen to me. And the truth is that when those killings happened in Charleston, it was a terrible time. But there was an opportunity to unify our state. The flag had been a point of debate for a long time. A part of the state looked at it and felt pain and saw it for slavery and all the things that they thought the Confederate flag stood for. Another part of the state saw it and didn't think of slavery. They saw it as heritage and sacrifice. That's 2 viewpoints that happened. My job as governor was not to judge either side of them. My job was, how do I move the state to make it better? And so if I had gone and said to the side that saw it as heritage and sacrifice, if I had gone to them and said, you're terrible people, you're evil, you can't do this, that flag would never have come down. The way that the flag came down was respecting both views, not taking a side, but saying, no one can drive by the State House and feel pain. That's not what we want. And so we needed to bring the flag down and put it in a museum. The fact that now all the liberals are saying, oh, she's walked back, oh, she changes different. I'm saying the same thing I said the day I asked for that flag to come down. And anyone that wants to move the ball in our country or move the ball in a state, you don't put down and condemn people who think differently than you. You bring them together, acknowledge their thoughts, and then move the ball to get to a solution. That's what we did. That's how we called for the flag to come down. That's how we moved the flag. And so to have this massive Twitter base now say, how dare you, how dare you? You know what? I know a lot of people that respected that flag. Some were my friends. They weren't evil. It's just their opinion of what they saw the situation as being. And so, look, if you don't want to hear the truth, that's fine. But anybody from South Carolina can tell you there were 2 viewpoints. Anybody from South Carolina can tell you it was controversial for a long time. And anybody from South Carolina would tell you that getting 2/3 vote and getting that flag down was an act of God. And we were blessed that the people of South Carolina stepped up and allowed that action to happen.
I mean, it felt like such a manipulated hit, especially given the fact that there are a bevy of Democratic politicians over the years who have said the exact same thing, ranging from Joe Biden to Howard Dean, who famously said that he wanted to be the candidate for people who had a Confederate flag on the back of their truck. I mean,
it shows how bad the political correctness has gotten. I mean, look, when you can't tell the truth about a situation, and I think the other part was to see how quick people were to judge. Like, how far has the country fallen when it's so divided that you're just waiting to hit someone? Wouldn't you rather hear the truth? Wouldn't you want to have the debate in a way that's real? And I think we've just gotten so far away from that. It's not going to stop me from speaking the truth. It's not going to stop me from telling people the way I see situations. And that's why we were able to get things done.
Well, one of the things that I've observed is that, you know, you were, when you left the ambassadorship, by polling data, the most popular politician in the country across both sides of the aisle. And it seems to me that now it seems like the media are trying to backpedal and backfill that and trying to stop that retroactively with hits like this. There are a bevy of editorials on this. Again, if you watch the original comments in context, you're not saying anything different now than you were saying on Glenn Beck's show. And this prompted spasms of apoplexy from the left. It says to me that they're kind of afraid of you as a possible future candidate.
Well, I mean, look, they can move back and say whatever they want. I'm going to continue to say what I think, and I'm going to continue to do what I think is right. And I think that, you know, this transcends. So what I did on the Confederate flag, that was one thing. But when you're in public policy, you have to deal with opposing views. When we had to deal with North Korea, I had to negotiate with China. Now, China, obviously, I didn't agree with, but I had to respect where they were coming from. I had to respect where Russia was coming from. I had to pull those views together to get those sanctions down on North Korea. This is a way of life. If you want to move the ball in policy whatsoever at the state level, the federal level, the international level, you have to be able to hear sides that are different than yours. And you have to be able to respect those sides enough to move the ball. And what I fear is that the liberal media, as well as the liberal voting population, now just wants to demonize people. You're not going to get anywhere by demonizing. No candidate that runs for anything is ever going to move the ball by demonizing people. And I think the general public is smarter than that. And I think they see it for what it is.
So I want to ask you about foreign policy. So obviously that was your specialty when you were ambassador. Right now we're seeing this vast debate break out, and it seems almost bipartisan, between a more isolationist view of foreign policy and a more interventionist view of foreign policy. You see people on both right and left sort of realigning and taking stock. You see some people on the right claiming that the United States should be on the other side of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, or you see people on the left saying the same thing. You'll see people saying that we should be more confrontational on the left with China. At the same time, you see that on the right. How do you think that realignment is taking place? And where do you think the American people should come down on this? Because it's always such a murky area.
I think you have to take it situation by situation. You don't want to treat every country exactly the same. And I think you have to look at where your vision and your goal is. You know, when you look at China, China is our number one threat. We know that from the standpoint of they're strengthening their military, which is a national security risk to us. They are investing all over the world, but they're running up the debt so much these countries can't pay it back. Now look at it and see that they're going to go say, well, I want your port, or I want to put a military installation, or I want that utility. Then you look at that map and it'll send a chill up your spine. The fact that they have 1 million plus Uyghurs or Muslims in concentration camps, making them change their name, change their religion, change the way they think. Or that President Xi started a committee that said any company that does business in China has to cooperate with the military, the Chinese military. So think of our tech companies. Think of the data they have on us and all of your listeners. And now think that the Chinese military will have access to that. So when you look at that, doesn't mean we shouldn't trade with China. Doesn't mean we stop talking to China. It means we let them know we're onto them and we're not going to let them get away with anything. You know, when you look at other hotspots, you know, like if you look at Venezuela, anytime there's human rights, Hong Kong, anytime there's people fighting for freedom, anytime there's people fighting for rights like we have, we should always stand with them. What does that mean? Use the power of our voice because it goes far. China hated being called out on Hong Kong. The fact that we just passed that legislation on Hong Kong standing with their people, that moves the ball quite a bit. I don't think we need to go start wars. I don't think we need to be in there to do that. But just like with the Syrian situation, I do think having military on the ground for intel purposes goes a really long way. And so we don't need to have hundreds of thousands of people anywhere. But, when the president was saying he didn't want endless wars, none of us want endless wars. But what we do want to know is we know what's on the ground there so that it doesn't happen here. And so with the situation with Syria, we needed to have the backs of the Kurds. They were our friends. They've shed a lot of blood for us. Does it mean we need to have hundreds of thousands of troops? No. But that intel, if that intel wouldn't have been on the ground, if our military wouldn't have been there, we wouldn't have gotten al-Baghdadi. We wouldn't have been able to find out those things. So there's a way to be involved without having massive numbers there. There's a way to be involved from a military or a leverage standpoint that allows countries to stand back and not be so quick to act. And so I think it depends on the situation. It depends on where we are.
Well, if you want more of that, and if you're interested in what Ambassador Haley has to say, and you should be, you're listening to her right now, check out her brand new book, With All Due Respect, Defending America with Grit and Grace. It really is a terrific book. Ambassador Haley, thanks so much for your time.
Always fun to be here.
Great to see you. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all of our future content.